The moment you stop chasing her, something powerful happens. She starts chasing you. Let me show you why distance makes her come back. When someone is constantly available, constantly giving, constantly present, their presence is often taken for granted. Human nature is built in such a way that we begin to devalue what we see every single day, what we always have access to, and what we believe will never go away. Think about it. When you see the same picture hanging on your wall every morning, you stop noticing the details. When you wear the same fragrance every day, you stop being aware of how good it smells. The human brain adapts, and with adaptation comes a decrease in perceived value. In relationships, it works the exact same way. When you are always around, always texting, always calling, always available at her convenience, she doesn't have to think twice about you. She doesn't have to wonder what life would feel like without you, because you've never allowed her to experience it. Your constant presence has unintentionally communicated to her subconscious that she doesn't need to fight for your attention because you've already surrendered it. But when you step back and allow absence to enter the dynamic, something powerful happens. That same presence she once overlooked suddenly starts to carry weight. That same energy she once ignored begins to feel rare. By giving her distance, you force her to confront a reality where you are not always there at her fingertips. And this change triggers something deep in her psychology: scarcity. What is scarce becomes valuable. What is rare becomes desirable. It's not that you became a different person overnight. It's not that you suddenly gained new qualities. It's that your absence highlighted the importance of what she had when you were around. This absence breaks the pattern of her expectations, and that disruption shocks her mind into reevaluating who you are in her life. Absence creates a vacuum, and nature hates a vacuum. When there's a gap, the mind wants to fill it. When there's silence, the mind wants to break it. When you stop reaching out, stop flooding her with attention, stop being predictable, she is left with an uncomfortable emptiness. That emptiness slowly turns into curiosity, and curiosity into longing. She begins to remember small things she didn't notice before: the way your words made her feel secure, the way your presence gave her stability, the way your energy shifted her emotions. All those little details she once dismissed or overlooked now come rushing back because absence has forced her to reflect. And the truth is, nothing amplifies appreciation like distance. When she no longer has you readily available, she starts comparing her present reality without you to her past reality with you. This comparison doesn't happen in one big dramatic realization. It creeps up in small, subtle moments. When she faces a challenge and you're not there to calm her. When she feels lonely and your message isn't lighting up her phone. When she sees something that reminds her of you but can't share it instantly. Each small moment compounds, building into a heavy emotional recognition. Your absence hurts more than your presence ever did. That's when she begins to crave you, not out of habit, but out of genuine desire. When you give a woman space, you create an invisible shift in the dynamic. The same man who was once always reaching out, always checking in, always available to answer her calls or reply instantly to her messages, suddenly becomes unpredictable. That predictability that once gave her comfort also made her feel too much in control. She didn't have to think, she didn't have to wonder, she didn't have to ask questions because she already knew what to expect from you. But when you pull back, when you stop feeding that constant stream of validation, her mind enters a state of curiosity. She starts to wonder why. She starts to question if something has changed. She begins to think about what you are doing, who you are spending your time with, and why you no longer give her the same level of attention. That curiosity alone has the power to draw her back in, because the human brain craves answers more than it craves comfort. Curiosity is a powerful force because it thrives in silence. When you give her less information, her mind starts filling in the blanks. Maybe you are busy building yourself. Maybe another woman is catching your attention. Maybe you are simply losing interest in her. Each possibility triggers an emotional reaction inside her. Suddenly, the certainty she once had about you is gone, and certainty breeds comfort, but uncertainty breeds attraction. When she doesn't know what you're up to, she becomes invested in finding out. She starts stalking your social media. She begins to reread old conversations. She might even test you with a random message just to see how you respond. This isn't just her being curious, it's her being pulled back into the orbit of your energy because she cannot stand the silence you've created. That space you created works like a mirror. It forces her to look at her own behavior and recognize how much she relied on your attention to feel secure. Without it, she realizes that she doesn't know as much about you as she thought she did. This uncertainty flips the script. Instead of you being the one trying to figure her out, now she is the one trying to figure you out. Instead of you chasing, she becomes the one seeking clarity. This role reversal is not about playing games. It's about allowing her to feel the natural curiosity that distance creates. Because the moment she realizes she doesn't fully know where she stands with you anymore, she will want to close that gap. And the only way to do it is by coming closer again. Curiosity is not just about what you're doing, it's about who you're becoming in her absence. When you step back and focus on yourself, your silence speaks louder than any words. It tells her that you are not dependent, that you are not desperate, that you are not the man who needs her to validate his worth. And this transformation, even if it's just perceived, sparks an even deeper curiosity. She wonders what's changed. She wonders if she still has the same influence over you. She wonders if the attention she once dismissed so easily might now be directed elsewhere. This mental loop can become relentless, and the more she thinks about it, the more she feels drawn back into your world. When you pull back and create distance, you're not just stepping away physically, you're giving both yourself and her a chance for an emotional reset. Constant interaction, constant availability, and constant communication may seem like acts of love, but they often lead to emotional exhaustion. When every little argument, every minor misunderstanding, and every wave of emotions is dealt with in real time, the connection gets clouded with unnecessary noise. She doesn't have time to process her feelings, you don't have space to breathe, and the relationship becomes a cycle of overexposure. By stepping back, you create silence, and silence has a powerful way of clearing out the emotional clutter that built up between the two of you. This reset gives her a chance to remember the bond without being weighed down by the daily friction. Distance creates perspective. When you are constantly present, she is reacting to the moment, not reflecting on the bigger picture. If there was tension, she's focused on the fight. If there was misunderstanding, she's focused on defending herself. If there was routine, she's focused on the boredom. But when you give her space, the constant reminders fade. That fight is no longer front and center. That routine doesn't feel suffocating anymore. The absence of your presence allows her to separate the temporary frustrations from the deeper value you bring into her life. Without the noise, she can feel the emotional weight of your importance in a way that presence never allowed her to. An emotional reset also works because of memory. Human memory is selective. It doesn't hold on to every detail. It filters. Over time, the negative emotions lose intensity, but the positive ones remain strong. When you're not around, she doesn't replay every single irritation. She starts recalling the moments that made her feel good, the experiences that brought her joy, the comfort she once felt in your presence. That's why people often miss someone more after they've stepped back, because absence filters the memories, amplifying the good while blurring out the bad. By allowing this natural process to happen, you give her the space to miss you, not because you demanded it, but because her own mind leads her there. Another layer of emotional reset comes from control. When you are always there, always accessible, she feels a sense of power. She knows you will reply. She knows you will show up. She knows you will forgive quickly. But when you stop being so readily available, she feels the emotional shift. She no longer controls the pace of the connection, and this imbalance forces her to reflect on her role. Suddenly, she realizes that your presence was never something guaranteed. It was a choice. And choices can change. That realization pushes her into a reset of her own emotions, a recognition that if she values the connection, she cannot take it lightly anymore. The reset also benefits you. Distance allows you to see her with clearer eyes, without the fog of constant emotional intensity. It gives you time to regain composure, to detach from unhealthy patterns, and to decide whether her presence truly adds value to your life. But from her perspective, this break feels like a sudden change in rhythm, and the silence you create becomes an echo chamber of emotions she didn't expect to face. That emotional reset can make her long for the comfort she once took for granted, because it is in the absence of your energy that she truly begins to feel how much it stabilized her. In every relationship dynamic, there is always a balance of power, whether it is spoken about openly or not. Power doesn't necessarily mean dominance. It simply refers to who sets the rhythm, who influences the emotions, and who dictates the pace of the connection. When you are always present, always giving, always available, you hand over that power without even realizing it. She becomes the one who decides when to talk, when to see each other, when to engage, and when to withdraw. You, on the other hand, fall into the role of responder rather than leader. At first, she may enjoy this control, but with time, it creates an unhealthy imbalance. She knows she doesn't have to put in effort because you will always compensate for it. This leads to complacency, and complacency is the silent killer of attraction. When you step back and create distance, the dynamic shifts. Suddenly, the rhythm she was used to is disrupted. The control she once held over your emotions begins to slip through her fingers. Instead of you waiting for her text, she now wonders why your name isn't lighting up her phone. Instead of you being available on her terms, she is left questioning why the attention she once received so easily has gone quiet. This shift is subtle, but it is powerful because it makes her feel something she isn't accustomed to: uncertainty. And uncertainty, though uncomfortable, ignites desire. The very act of not knowing where she stands pulls her in, because people chase after what they feel slipping away. By pulling back, you reclaim your own emotional authority. You are no longer giving her the unspoken message that her approval defines your worth. You are no longer allowing her to dictate the flow of your energy. Instead, you show her that you have a center of gravity of your own, that your world doesn't collapse without her, that your attention is a privilege, not a guarantee. This creates a reversal of roles. Now she becomes the one who feels the need to reestablish connection, to make effort, to win back the influence she once had. This reversal is not about manipulation. It is about restoring balance. A woman cannot truly respect a man she completely controls. Respect is born when she feels your strength, when she feels your independence, when she realizes she cannot bend you at will. The shift of power also awakens a deeper layer of attraction. Women are instinctively drawn to men who do not crumble under pressure, who do not cling when faced with distance, and who do not beg for validation. When you demonstrate through your actions that you can walk away, you create a magnetic pull. She realizes that your presence in her life is not something she can toy with, it is something she must value. This realization often comes as a shock because until you pulled away, she believed the dynamic was fixed in her favor. That shock alone can be enough to make her reconsider her own behavior and reach back out in an attempt to regain her footing. This shift is also psychological. When someone has power for too long, they stop appreciating it. But when that power is suddenly removed, the loss feels heavier than the gain ever did. She may not have celebrated the control she once had over your emotions, but the moment it is gone, she feels the void deeply. That void drives her actions, pushes her to reconnect, and fuels her desire to restore what she unknowingly lost. And in that very process, she is drawn back to you, not because you chased, but because your absence forced her to confront a reality where the balance no longer favored her. One of the strongest triggers, predictable and available, her mind doesn't need to do any work. She knows where you are, she knows what you're doing, she knows how you feel about her. That certainty may feel comfortable, but comfort rarely sparks attraction. What ignites attraction is tension, uncertainty, and the unknown. When you give her distance, you activate these forces unconsciously. Without realizing it, she begins to feel drawn toward you again, not because of anything you said or did directly, but because your absence triggers the very psychology that fuels desire. The human mind is wired to be intrigued by mystery. When there is less information, the brain becomes more active, trying to fill in the gaps. By stepping back, you stop feeding her with constant updates, attention, and reassurance. Suddenly, her mind starts working overtime to figure you out. She begins replaying old conversations, analyzing your behavior, and questioning what changed. This mental activity heightens her emotional engagement with you, even when you are not physically there. She may not consciously admit it, but the curiosity you spark becomes attraction, because the more she thinks about you, the more you occupy her emotional space. Unconscious attraction also thrives on scarcity. People value what feels limited, what is not easily available, what requires effort to obtain. When you are always accessible, your presence felt abundant, and abundance often lowers perceived value. By withdrawing, you create scarcity, and with scarcity comes desire. She may not say it out loud, but deep down she feels that pull. Something about your energy feels different, something about your silence feels powerful, and she cannot fully explain why she's suddenly thinking about you more. This is unconscious attraction at work, an automatic response to the shift in energy you created by no longer being predictable. There is also the role of contrast. When you were consistently present, she adapted to that rhythm and her emotional response leveled out. But when that rhythm broke, when the pattern changed, the contrast reignited her awareness of you. It's the same way silence makes you appreciate sound, or how darkness makes you notice light. By stepping away, you gave her mind a contrast it couldn't ignore. The lack of your presence suddenly made her remember how strong your presence actually was. This contrast fuels a subconscious longing, pulling her back toward the very energy she thought she could overlook. Unconscious attraction also ties into biology. Women are naturally drawn to men who appear confident, self-sufficient, and independent. By pulling back, you unconsciously communicate those traits. You are no longer signaling neediness, you are signaling strength. And strength, even when unspoken, is magnetic. Without thinking about it, she starts associating your absence with qualities she desires in a man. Her instincts interpret your distance not as rejection, but as proof of your value. This instinctive pull is what makes her feel attracted without fully understanding why. The more you maintain your composure, the stronger this unconscious attraction grows. Because what truly pulls someone in is not loud declarations, not constant reminders, but the silent energy of someone who doesn't need to prove his worth. That energy lingers in her mind, stirs her emotions, and makes her feel drawn back toward you, even if she cannot rationalize the reason. Nothing impacts human behavior as strongly as the possibility of losing something valuable. We are wired to protect what we fear might slip away, even more than we are motivated to appreciate what we already have. Psychologists call this loss aversion, the principle that the pain of losing something is far greater than the joy of gaining something of equal value. In relationships, this plays out in a very raw way. As long as you are always there, as long as she feels certain of your presence, she doesn't have to consider the possibility of loss. She feels safe in the assumption that you are fixed in her life, whether she treats you with effort or neglect. But when you step back, when you give her distance, when you no longer reinforce that certainty, her mind is forced to confront a scenario she never had to before, the possibility that she could lose you for good. Loss does something that presence never can. It magnifies value. While you were around, your efforts, your consistency, your energy may have felt ordinary to her because she was immersed in them daily. But the moment you remove that presence, she begins to notice the emptiness it leaves behind. Small things she never acknowledged before suddenly feel heavy. The absence of your voice in her day, the silence of her phone without your messages, the missing comfort of your support, all of it creates an emotional void, and the human mind cannot tolerate voids. It seeks to fill them. That's when her thoughts circle back to you, not because you forced them, but because the possibility of permanent loss activated the deepest layers of her psychology. Another truth about loss is that it makes people reframe their memories. When she fears losing you, her mind begins to filter out the negatives and amplify the positives. She remembers the moments you made her laugh, the times you stood by her, the comfort of your presence, the way you gave her stability when she needed it most. What once felt normal now feels precious, and it only feels that way because she no longer has access to it. The irony is